It was about 4, 5, 6.5, 10 years ago that my son Kenny was born. One of those years is how old my son is. I don't know. I went to the I went to the pharmacy a couple months ago, and the lady's like, birth date, date of birth. And I was like, oh no, Megan sent me she and I started like rattling off these dates I could think of. She goes, no, your birthday. I go, oh, okay, I got that. All right. And then I get done, and she goes, good job, Dad. I go, thank you. I did my best. Tell my wife. When my son Kenny was born, we already had kids. And so whenever a new kid was being born, I always wondered, because I was the youngest kid, so I don't know this experience, I always wondered what it was like to be the kid when the new sibling's being born. I was worried about them because like the day comes and mom and dad disappear into the hospital, and then they just get spoiled rotten by their grandparents for 2 days. And they sometimes get concerned they're getting too spoiled, so you don't want to have them have trauma for that. And so I'd try to figure out a way. I got to slip out of the hospital. In-laws would come to visit the new baby, and I would go out and make sure I'd spend at least some time with my kids who were outside the hospital just so they could have some parent time. And so I took Sam and Sarah to lunch and then to buy some clothes for Kenny. And so we're doing it, we're hanging out, we're having our dad time, and I go and I open the door to the Oshkosh Bagosh or whatever, and I turn around and I look and I see these two kids just looking up at me. And this weird sadness swept over me. This thing, I was like, oh, weird, because this has been their whole experience. For the last 2 years, the entire life experience of Sam up to that point was mom, dad, 2 kids, and we're just buds and we're hanging out or whatever. And now that season of life is coming to an end, and a new season's coming. One chapter is closing and one chapter is opening. And here's what got me on that moment. Not that there's a new kid, because we're always happy for new kids to come into the family, but what was so weird was I was thinking about those experiences. I was thinking about the life we'd lived so far up to that point, and I realized for the entire 2-year period that Sam was alive, and all that, they were the only kids we had, and that was the whole crew, we were not missing anything. We were a complete family. We had all the aspects. We had all the hallmarks of what a family is. We had mom, dad, kids, going to work, coming home, days off, vacations, family dinners. We had all the things. We had trips we went on, and all the different fun things we did, and we played games in the house, and we tried to be silly, and we had to clean our rooms. All the different parts. It was like, what is a family? We had. And there's never really a day where we sat there and we were like, wait, where's our other kid? We never once were like, wait, time out. There's someone missing here, because no one was missing. And so I was sitting there and I was thinking, wow, for like 2 years, there's this whole complete family that Kenny wasn't even a part of. But here's what you learn when you have more kids. And if anyone who's had a second, third, or fourth kid, I don't know what people who have 5 or more say, but whatever. Those of us who I can identify with, whenever you have a new kid, we'll all tell you the same thing. They're just going to fit right in. They just join the family. They're just a part of it. And here's what you learn as a dad. A complete family plus one more does not equal one extra. Complete plus one more does not equal one extra. It equals complete. That a complete family is there, and you have the mom, dad, the kids, and the family time, the vacation, the things you do, all the things you do in family life, and then you add one more child into that. Guess what you have? Just another example of what a complete family is. And here's what I learned that day. We were a complete family, but we were not a full family. And those are two different things. You could always fit one more in. You could always bring another person into the fold. And next thing you know, before you realize it, he's just going to fit in with everybody else. He's just going to be part of the family, bedtime like everybody else, reading time books just like everybody else. He's going to just be part of the crew and just going to walk. My crowd's leaving, I'm going to walk. And that's his life. And just the next thing you know, he's part of the family like the rest of us. And did you know that formula works exactly the same way with the church? Did you know that that formula works exactly the same way as a church? That there are churches that can walk around, there's no such thing as being a full church. We at Foothills Christian Church are a complete church. We have all the hallmarks of a church. We have pastors and elders, and we have volunteers. We have leaders serving all the different areas. We have Sunday morning worship and communion and baptisms and Bible studies and small groups and community. We have generosity. We give of our finances. We have compassion. We have charity. We have relationships. We have all the hallmarks of a church. We are a complete church. But we're not a full church. There can always be one more coming into our fold. And next thing you know, they're going to be part of the crew, just like the rest of us. I came across an old sermon the other day, and I started the sermon off by saying, man, that was cool. Nicole just joined the band. That was her first time playing piano for us. And I looked at the date. That was 1.5 years ago. I remember the onboarding of Nicole coming into the band. I remember the process of her going, all right, let me learn the songs. Let me learn how to play with the band. Let me do this stuff. I remember the whole process. And then just like that, what new piano player? She's been here 1.5 years. She's one of the crew, just like the rest of us. And many of you have had your moments where you came into this church and you're like, how do I get my foot in the door? How do I figure this out? How do I join in? All these people all know each other and I don't know anybody. All this stuff's going on. And then just next thing you know, oh, I'm just part of the crew. I'm here. Because a complete church plus one more does not equal one extra. It's not a tag-along. It's not someone we just keep in the closet until someone who's already here gets angry and leaves. We go, well, that's okay. We got one extra. Now we'll just plug them in. No, it's a complete church plus one more equals a complete church. That's how it works. And there's not a day that goes by where I walk around going, where's all my missing people? Where's we should be, the church down the road or that. No, I look at our church and I say, thank God for our church. Because I believe full-heartedly that this Foothills Christian Church is a complete church. But we're not a full church. There's never going to be a day where we get to the point where we go, you know what, that's just good enough for us. We've got enough to make me happy or you happy. Or if we get a little more, then we'll be. If we have that mindset of going, we just got to get a little more or a little more. There's a moment where you can find a satisfaction or whatever. Church life will lead that way just like every other part of your life. Success or money or career or anything else. When you start thinking, well, there's some sort of moment in the future that I'll be so happy if I get it, that'll let you down in the church just like it will anywhere else. Because that's not what we're aiming for. But what we are aiming for as a church is one more. Is how can we go and introduce one more person, one more family, one more group into the life of our church. One of the founding ideas of the church, if not the founding idea of the church, is what's called the Great Commission. And the Great Commission goes like this: therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. This is like the battle cry of the church. When Jesus was leaving to go back to heaven, he said, this is what I want you to focus on. This is what I want you to do. I want you to go. And if you ever want to know, are we doing what Jesus asked us to do? Are we doing what a church should be doing? Here's some questions. Are we baptizing? Are we preaching? Are we going to reach the lost? Are we teaching people how to obey God's commands? Are we doing the different parts of what God has taught us to do? We can find it right in there. And as long as we can say yes to those questions, then yes, we're on target. We're moving forward. And so the main way that we do this as a church is by helping people come into the life of our church. By making sure there's avenues through which people can walk in the doors and then sometime later be part of the crew. This isn't elementary school where if you came in second grade all the way in the fifth grade, you're still the new kid. Okay, you remember that? When people didn't move around so much? Like you came in second grade, you're like still the new kid in high school. And you're like, how is this possible? Come on. Can we get one more new person? And so here's how we've decided to distill this Great Commission call for Foothills Christian Church into this short mission statement. Here's what we want to do. We want to preach Christ and connect people. That's our goal. We want to preach Christ and connect people. And in an ever-dividing, ever-fracturing world, we want to be a source of connection and relationship that people can come into and find a sense of balance, a sense of ballast for their lives, and go, wow, I actually have a connection to these people. Oh, I have relationships that kind of stick with me. And it's great. And that's what we want to do. We want to preach Christ and connect people. Listen how Ephesians talks about this. It says this, this mystery is that through the gospel, the Gentiles are heirs together with Israel, members together of one body, and sharers together in the promise of Christ Jesus. So here's what they say. This is the mystery. In other words, the mystery. Here's the big reveal that God's been waiting to share with the world. Here's the big reveal. Here's the big idea that he can't wait to just reveal to everybody. It's that through the gospel, through the good news of Jesus Christ, through the love of Jesus, Gentiles are welcome to God just like Jewish people are. And if you're not familiar with Bible terms, Gentiles are just anyone who's not Jewish. Meaning everyone on earth has been welcomed into this relationship through Christ Jesus. Now, I want us to take a step back and laser focus this thing. Now, I know it's a crime to individualize anything in the Bible right now, but I just want us to take a step back out of the cosmic and kind of go really narrow. What does this mean to you? What is it saying? It's saying the mystery of God's plan in this world is not just that they and them and though over there. No, the mystery of God's plan in this world is that you can share in the inheritance with Jesus Christ just like the rest of us. That's the good news of the Bible. That in Christianity, there's no such thing as getting in and slamming the door behind you. Here's a verse that I have come to love. I think it might be one of my favorite verses. I'd never thought about it that way until writing this sermon. Here's Ephesians 2:17. It says this. He came, which is Jesus, he came and preached peace to those who were far away and peace to those who were near. And through him both have access to the Father by one Spirit. Now think about what that says. There's some of us who feel like I'm too far gone. There's some of us who feel like there's no way God could love me. I've done too much. I've gone too far. I've done too much. And Paul's going, hey, God came to preach peace to you. And there's those of us who feel like, you know what, I've done a pretty good job. I grew up in the church. Maybe I don't need help from anybody, or maybe I've got a good foundation I laid for my parents, and that's great. That's wonderful. And I hope you did get a good foundation laid for you, but guess what? Jesus came to preach peace to you too. Both groups, every person, everyone in the world got the same message from Jesus Christ. Peace. And now you can come to the Father through me. And so how does that play out in the church? What it means is, as we preach Christ, the implication of preaching Christ is that people then get to become connected to the body. They get to be connected to the group. And there's never a moment where you and I get to the point where we go, wow, we've done the Great Commission enough. There's never a moment coming where we get to go, you know what? I have preached all the Christ I need to preach, and I've connected all the people I need to connect. We're now full. We are now filled to the brim. Because there's no such thing as a full church, even though we are a complete church. I want to give you another formula about church life. And I know I'm getting really mathy on you guys, but that's okay. And when I was writing this sermon, I wrote the word mathy, like M-A-T-H-Y, 3 times. And autocorrect changed it back to math 3 times. It's like, I'm not letting you write mathy on this sheet of paper. And I'm like, I'm writing mathy on this sheet of paper. And so it's right here. I have it right here. But here's a formula that goes. Now, if I were to sit down with some other pastors, this isn't something you normally preach, but I'm going to just preach it today. If I were to sit down with pastors, this is like shop talk pastor edition. Here's a formula that we all know in ministry. And that is, in a worship center, in a room like this, 80% full equals full. It's just a rule of people going to church. And what that means is, once we get up to 80% of what we can fit in this room, we got to figure something out. Otherwise, no one else is going to come. You'll go, well, there's chairs there, and there's chairs there. I know, but the 80% full is full. It's just a rule, like gravity in church. Now, here's what I find fascinating about this rule. It's not the case everywhere. It isn't the case everywhere that 80% full is full. No stadium on earth would say, we sold out. We sold 80% of our tickets. They go, then you didn't sell out. That's not true. But there are people, you'll go to a football game or a sporting event, and you'll go knowing you'll probably have to stand shoulder to shoulder to somebody, and there's going to be people with their shirts taken off and letters painted on their chest, and someone's going to be sweating around you, and that sweat might get on you, and you go knowing, and not only do people go there, they sign up for it. They pay money for this experience. They might stand in the cold or the rain or the snow, and they'll go, great, let me pay $9 for a hot dog. It sounds wonderful. And people are just like, okay, let's go do it. Or you'll go to a concert, and you know the seats are going to be full. You're probably not going to have very much elbow room. The music's going to be too loud. And the lady next to you is probably going to be dancing and not staying in her lane. And your wife's going to be like, if that lady touches my husband one more time. And I'm like, okay. And the lead singer is going to take a drink of his water and throw the rest of the bottle in the audience. People are going to go, it got on me. This is wonderful. But could you imagine the mayhem that would happen if just in the middle of a sermon I just threw a bottle of water into the room? You'd be like, I'm not coming back, Garrett. Like, what were you thinking? Are you a middle schooler? I was like, maybe, I don't know. If people showed up, could you imagine what you would think if you got sweated on at church? Could you imagine? That would not be fun. You show up and there's people with their shirts off and they're trying to spell Garrett up front. But it's church, so only half of them showed up, so it just says Gart up there, and you're like, come on, guys. The second T never shows up, so I'm just sitting there looking at my name spelled wrong for a week and a half. This isn't the rule everywhere, but it is the rule at church. And here's my point. And by the way, I just want to say this, because pastors usually do this. I just want to say it out loud so you can hear me. I'm not complaining about that. I understand how sports work and music works and things like that. And I understand that people want a purse chair and a Bible chair and if my husband's annoying, a couple extra chairs for the Holy Spirit chair and all that sort of stuff. I get that. But here's what I want to say. I think it's fascinating that inside church world, where we are convinced that, man, if we get 80% full, we're just packed. We got to figure this out. Where we start going, we got to solve this, we got to get a bigger room, or we got to get a second service, we got to figure something out because we're so full. At that moment where we start solving the problem for being too full, guess what? There's literally room for one more. In church world, by the time you start saying, we're too full, we got to figure something out. Literally, and I'm using this word correctly, unlike most people on earth today, literally, we're not too full. Literally, we do have room to let one more come in, one more family, one more group of people show up. And I want to show you, here's a picture of our room. This is our room, 105 chairs in the room, and I counted all the chairs in the building. We have 121 to our name that are brown like this. And if you're wondering if anyone who was the psycho that bought 121 chairs, as if that's a round number, we didn't. Someone of you stole it, and I want to know who it is. I'm just showing. We're missing 4 chairs, but that's okay. Now, this is our room. This is what we have to work with. And go to the next slide for me. This is 70 chairs. Do you feel the anxiety? You're looking at your spot on there, and you're going, wait, I'm going to have that many people around me? There's me and Megan on the front row, and no one else, because we're in the splash zone. The rest of the front row is empty as God intended. No one was supposed to be that close to the preacher, so I get it. But if you want a purse chair, there's plenty of room up here. Back row's full, good. I would be worried if that wasn't full. But could you imagine if you walked into this room and not looking up above like this, but you just kind of walked up, everyone's standing up and they're singing, and you go, where am I going to sit? Where am I going to sit? See, that's not even 80%, and all of a sudden, and already you're starting to go, oh, yeah, that's getting kind of tight. And yet, look at all the blue. Because there is such a thing as a complete church in this world, but there is no such thing as a full church. And I think, this is not the Bible, I'm just saying this, I think maybe God wrote it on the psychology of going to church, that there will literally almost always be a chair for someone who wants to walk in. That there will almost always be room for one more person. So if God's saying, hey, listen, Foothills, listen, I'm sending my people to your church this week, you'll have a seat for them. Because we are a complete church. but we're not a full church. And the formula is always true, that a complete church plus one more is a complete church. That's how church life works. And what that means is we'll never get to the point in our lives, in the life of this church, where we can say, we don't have to preach Christ or connect people anymore. We don't have to preach Christ or connect people anymore. Those have been accomplished because they haven't. That mission goes on forever. And as a church, the elders of this church, what we want for you, we want you to buy into it. We want you to understand the goal, to understand the objective and say, I'm all in on that. And I want to tell you something, man. You're sitting around people. Maybe you're sitting here and you've always been kind of waffly. You've always been kind of one foot in, one foot out. But you're sitting around people who are bought into this church, who are going, I want to see Foothills Christian Church succeed to the highest level. I've had two different people. We talk about evangelism fairly often in this church because it's so important. It's such an important part of the church. But I've had two different people come up to me and they go, hey, Garrett, I'm not really like an evangelist like that. I don't just kind of like go out and talk to people or reach. I don't really just kind of invite people to church. I'm nervous about that. But I have an idea. I want to print this card out that has like a QR code to like the website, and it just says, I want to invite you to my church, and I can just set it down and leave. And I go, that's awesome. I want to tell you something. I've not had one person tell me that. I've had two people tell me that. And here's what's cool. As a pastor, as a person who's been in ministry for over a decade at this point, I've printed a lot of things in my time. I've printed out a lot of things in my time that just goes somewhere and collects dust. But yet there are people in our room going, how can I participate? How can I preach Christ and connect people? How can I get the word out and say, man, you know what? You really would like my church. You really would like the people there. And what that is buying in. Buying in. We, the elders and I and some of the leaders have been praying over an idea, a goal for the next 2 years of the life of our church. And here's what's fascinating. We've been praying through a mission for the life of our church, which is preach Christ and connect people. And then we've been praying for a goal, something to kind of be aiming at. And our goal is this. Are you ready? It's going to be a total contradiction of everything I've said so far. Our goal is to be in attendance of 200 people by this time in 2027. That God has used us so effectively to preach Christ and connect people that we have 200 people as a part of the life of our church in the next 2 years. And here's the deal. That goal is not there to pad stats or make anyone feel good or anything like that. That goal is to give us something actual, tangible that we can aim at and say, God, here's what we're aiming for, and if we hit these goals, it will mean that we have been preaching Christ and connecting people. It will mean that we've not been asleep at the wheel. It will mean we have not been letting whatever happen. And as you and I and the rest of us buy in together, who knows what God wants to do with our church? But I'll tell you, people in this room are buying in. And special things are happening in our church. And I want every one of you to be a part of it. I want every one of you to buy in as well. Because here's what I believe about church. I believe that everyone on earth deserves to have a church go out of its way for them. And no one church is that for everybody. No one church is the church that finds a way to go out of its way for everyone on earth. But we should be going out of our way for some people. We should be going out of our way for those who will come. And because here's the deal. Somebody went out of their way for you. Somebody went out of their way to help you get connected to this church somehow. And now that we're here, it's our turn to turn back around and do it for others. Because No one on earth has gone more out of their way than Jesus Christ has. Philippians 2 says that though Jesus was the equal to God, he gave up the rights that came with being God. And he descended into humanity, and he went all the way, he humbled himself all the way to the point of a slave and even to death on the cross. Because he loves us that much. The whole thrust of Christianity is a God going out of his way for the people he loves. And then he turns around and he says, I want you to go into all the world. What is that? I want you to go out of your way to make room for one more. Go out of your way to get one more connected. And when we do that as a church, who knows where God will take us?